我靠，2024年的美国总统选举越来越精彩，越来越有趣耶！我们上一集有评论 kamalaharris 的错赛 CNN 采访，一个38分钟的采访，他只讲话16分钟耶。
Cat got your tongue?
And just a few days after that, Trump immediately appeared on one of the largest podcasts in America, Lex Fridman. Now, for those who don't know, Lex Fridman is not just your ordinary podcaster, yo. He is also an AI computer research scientist at MIT. And this guy's interviewed people all the way from Kanye West to Bibi Netanyahu. And check this, out of this 50分钟的采访，川普讲话45分钟耶，跟 Kamalaharris 差3倍耶。
Which happens to be true. Check out the ratings.
And the result? In less than 24 hours, Trump's interview racked up over 3 million views with over 50,000 comments. And when it comes to that dislike ratio, the likes outnumber the disses by 14 倍. And the oh so sweet cherry on top is that within hours of this video being uploaded on the online betting sites, Trump jumped up 3 points where Kamala dropped down 1 point, resulting in a 7-point gap. So today, we're going to take a look at exactly how this interview got such an overwhelmingly positive response online. So pour yourself a nice, smooth glass of whiskey and get that popcorn ready, as this interview is probably the most serious you've ever seen the Orange Man be. Okay, so like I said before, this interview is 50 minutes long. And I gotta be real, a lot of it is Trump dodging questions, flinging shit at Kamala, Biden, the Democratic Party, and also whining about a bunch of bullshit. But despite all that, there's still a lot of this podcast that is very interesting. And I've managed to filter and take out all the best parts just for you. And if you'd like to see the interview in its entirety, link down below, yo. So like I said in the previous episode, Trump is an a-hole, but he is a tough a-hole. And what you're about to see in this first clip will show you exactly what I am talking about.
You've said that politics is a dirty game in the past.
It is a dirty game. It's certainly true.
So if it is a game, how do you win at that game?
Well, you win at that game by getting the word out and by using sense. You have to have a feeling where it's going. You also have to have a feeling of what's right. You can't necessarily just go what's popular. You have to do what's good for a country.
So a rough translation, I may be an a-hole, but I'm a tough a-hole, and I do it for the country.
It's true.
And as you will see in this next clip, Trump is also an a-hole who loves negotiation and really dislikes war.
One of the great things about people from the business world is they're often great deal makers. And you're a great deal maker. And you've talked about the war in Ukraine, and that you would be able to find a deal that both Putin and Zelensky would accept. What do you think that deal looks like?
I think the deal, and I wouldn't talk about it too much because I think I can make a deal. If I win as president-elect, I'll have a deal made. Guaranteed. That's a war that shouldn't have happened. It's terrible. That's a war that absolutely has to get done. And then you have Israel, and then you have a lot of other places that are talking war. The world is a rough place right now. And a lot of it's because of the fact that America has no leadership. And we have to get those wars settled. We have to get, I'll tell you, you have to get Ukraine done. That could end up in a third world war. So could the Middle East.
Now, I don't know about you, but if someone who's been about that president life for at least 4 years comes and tells me that if we keep carrying on with this war, then it will lead us into World War III, I'd be likely to take them very seriously. And the one thing that many people liked about Trump during his presidency is that he made many attempts to avoid war, sometimes in ways you couldn't even imagine.
If we can go back to China on negotiation, how do we avoid war with China in the 21st century?
Well, there are ways now. Here's the problem. If I tell you how, and I'd love to do it, but if I give you a plan, like I have a very exacting plan how to stop Ukraine and Russia, and I have a certain idea, maybe not a plan, but an idea for China, because we're in a lot of trouble. They'll be in a lot of trouble too, but we're in a lot of trouble. But I can't give you those plans because if I give you those plans, I'm not going to be able to use them. They'll be very unsuccessful. Part of it's surprise, right?
Right.
But they won't be able to help us much.
So, a plan that would definitely work, but he can't reveal a single detail because it would not only ruin the element of surprise, but would also render it completely useless.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Yeah, I'm half inclined to think that he's full of shit, but I could be wrong. So let's take a look at exactly how Trump negotiates.
What do you think works better in those kinds of negotiations? Leverage of, let's say, friendship, the carrot or the stick? Friendship or sort of the threat of using the economic and military power?
So it depends on who the person is. Everyone's different. Negotiation's interesting because it depends on who the person is. And then you have to guess or know through certain knowledge which is, more important, the carrot or the stick. And with some people it's the stick, and with some people it's the carrot. I think the stick probably is generally more successful in that, we're talking about war.
The carrot or the stick idea, made world famous by England's Winston Churchill. But Trump's version is more like Pablo Escobar's silver or lead idea, straight up gangster. And what you're about to see next is something straight out of the movies, dude.
We were having very little problem with the Taliban when I was there because they knew it was going to be tough. I dealt with Abdul. Abdul was the leader, and we got along fine. He understood. But, they were killing a lot of our people before I came down. And when I got there, I spoke to him, I said, you can't do it. Don't do it anymore. We went 18 months before this happened. This horrible day happened. We went 18 months and nobody was shot at or killed.
What do you think that was, the carrot or the stick in that case in Afghanistan?
The stick.
Worked?
Definitely
so
the stick.
The threat of military force.
That was the stick, yeah. It doesn't have to be, but that was the stick.
哇塞，18个月塔利班完全安静了。川普，你到底跟他们讲什么？
When we were negotiating with the Taliban, while President Trump was still the president, President Trump wanted to get out of Afghanistan, but he wanted a conditions-based withdrawal, meaning that you do what we tell you to do, and then we will start pulling troops back slowly as long as you abide by our rules. It's President Trump and Mike Pompeo, and they are talking to Taliban leadership in the room, and they had one translator in the room. President Trump looked at the Taliban leader and said this: I want to leave Afghanistan, but it's going to be a conditions-based withdrawal. And translator translated. And he said, if you harm a hair on a single American, I'm going to kill you. And the translator goes, and Trump goes, tell him.
Yes.
Tell him what I said. Reached in his pocket, pulled out a satellite photo of the leader of the Taliban's home and handed it to him.
Shut up.
Got up and walked out the room.
Sure did.
Do you know for 18 months, not a single American was killed in Afghanistan?
Sure did.
That's the definition of strength. That's what I'm talking about. And so you could imagine that kind of sentiment being around the world. If we have an embassy in another country, no one's going to touch it because they're going to be fearful that they'll get a Moab on their head. That's how President Trump rolls.
Now, I have no idea if this story is true or not, and I actually tried to do some digging to prove or disprove it. But the fact that the man telling it is not only a U.S. congressman, but a former war veteran, it could be true.
It's true.
But if anything, this could be insight into how Trump might deal with Xi Jinping if he gets back in that White House. Now, most of you guys who've been watching this channel for a while know that I am not a big Trump fan. But when it comes to policy and choosing between a chameleon and an asshole, give me the asshole. Because when Trump speaks, he says things naturally and with ease, in a way that people can understand, unlike Kamehameha, who joyfully word salads her way through an interview without any pushback and somehow manages to make it into a complete disaster. So when it comes to Trump, at least one thing is clear. On the topic of war, he's willing to be the biggest asshole to prevent it. And I know that might worry some people in Taiwan, but look at it this way. If you can get this a-hole on your side, then you might not have much to worry about.
What the hell do you have to lose?
So in the next chapter, we're going to take a close look at how when Trump was president, he dealt with one of his biggest enemies, Hillary Rodham Clinton. Okay, so far, Lex hasn't really asked any difficult questions, but this next one I think is on the minds of many American people and also Taiwanese. How do you deal with your political opponents without dissing their asses? Now, there are a lot of swing state voters, myself included, who are tired of the negativity and attacks in politics. Because nowadays, campaign strategies have become all about how to diss and beat your opponent rather than how you can actually help the people you represent.
Whenever we use terms like communism for her, and I don't know if you know this, but some people call you a fascist.
Yeah, they do. So I figure it's all right to call them a communist. Yeah, they call me a lot worse than I call them.
They do indeed. It's just sometimes...
It's interesting, though. They'll call me something that's terrible, and then I'll hit them back. And they'll say, isn't it terrible what Trump said? I said, well, wait a minute. They just called me. So I believe you have to fight fire with fire. I believe they're very evil people. These are evil people. We have an enemy from the outside, and we have an enemy from within. And in my opinion, the enemy from within are radical left lunatics. And I think you have to fight back.
Whenever there's a lot of fighting fire with fire, it's too easy to forget that there's a middle of America that is that's moderate and kind of sees the good in both sides and just likes one side more than the other in terms of policies. Like I said, there's a lot of people that like your policies like your skill in being able to negotiate and end wars, and they don't see the impending destruction of America.
Now, it's pretty obvious that Trump is avoiding this question like the plague. What's really interesting is where Lex is talking about election, Trump is talking about his enemies. Because let's be real, America, just like Taiwan, has been completely infiltrated by Chinese and Russian spies. I mean, dude, just a couple of days ago, America arrested a Chinese spy who was working in New York and actively preventing Tsai Ing-wen from meeting the governor. Not only that, but she was also involved in a Chinese money laundering scheme. So, fighting fire with fire using hatred to combat hatred is actually how it works in war. But unfortunately, this makes Trump sound like that dictator they illustrated in Project 2025.
Let me ask you about Project 2025. So you've publicly said that you don't have any direct connection to Project
Nothing. I know nothing about it. And they know that too. Democrats know that. And I purposely haven't read it because I want to say to you, I have no idea what it's all about. It's easier than saying I read it and, all of the things. No, I purposely haven't read it. And I've heard about it. I've heard about things that are in there that I don't like. And there's some things in there that everybody would like. But there are things that I don't like at all. And I think it's unfortunate that they put it out, but it doesn't mean anything because it has nothing to do with me. Project 25 has absolutely nothing to do with me.
Now, Trump has repeatedly said that he has absolutely nothing to do with Project 2025. But as we know, people can lie, and Trump has lied before. So the best way to tell a measure of a person is not to hear what they say, but to look at their actions. And next, you're going to see how he treated one of his biggest enemies back in 2016.
As the leader of the United States, you were the most powerful man in the world. As you mentioned, not only the most famous, but the most powerful. And if you become leader again, you will have unprecedented power. Just on your own personal psychology, what does that power do to you? Is there any threat of it corrupting how you see the world?
No, I don't think so. Look, I've been there for 4 years. I could have done a big number on Hillary Clinton. I thought it looked terrible to take the president's wife and put her in prison. She's so lucky. I didn't do anything. She's so lucky. Hillary is a lucky woman because I had a lot of people pushing me too. They wanted to see something, but I could have done something very bad. I thought it looked so bad. Think of it. You have the President of the United States, and you also had Secretary of State, right? She was. But you're going to put the President's wife in prison? And yet when I got out, they have all these hoaxes. They're all hoaxes. But they have all these dishonest hoaxes, just like they did in the past with Russia. That was a hoax. The 51 different, agencies or agents, that was a hoax. The whole thing was a hoax. There was so many hoaxes and scams. But I didn't want to put her in jail. And I didn't. And I explained it to people. They say, lock her up. It doesn't. We won. I said, we don't want to put her in jail. We want to bring the country together. I want to bring the country together. You don't bring the country together by putting her in jail. But then when I got out, they went to work on me. It's amazing. And they suffer from massive Trump derangement syndrome, TDS. And I don't know if it's curable from their standpoint.
Now, I think this is a really important point because Trump reminded people that when he was in power, Hillary, despite all the evil and devious and illegal shit she did not go to jail under his administration. But the moment the Democratic Party had a chance, they threw everything from the justice system to the CIA to the FBI at Trump, trying to get him locked up. Shit, he might even go to jail before the end of the month.
Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
But I guess this is the downside of fighting fire with fire, because at the end of the day, somebody is going to get burned. And that is especially the case when it comes to US and Taiwan, because Xi Jinping's ultimate goal is to ideologically subvert democratic societies, inciting internal hatred, forcing countrymen to turn on each other, and ultimately grow tired of hate-filled politics. And real talk, my man is doing a pretty good job as of late. So, with that out of the way, next comes the most interesting part, because in the next chapter, you will hear some of the most amazing secrets that Trump wants to reveal to the world. Fun fact, my country has a lot of secrets. We got so many bodies, you need something as big as Usan to even bury them all. But there are some very particular ones that when it comes to Trump, he has something very interesting to say on what he would reveal.
A lot of people are very interested in footage of UFOs. The Pentagon has released a few videos, and there's been anecdotal reports from fighter pilots. So a lot of people want to know, will you help push the Pentagon to release more footage, which a lot of people claim is available?
Oh, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I would do that. I'd love to do that. I have to do that. But they also are pushing me on Kennedy. And I did release a lot, but I had people come to me and beg me not to do it. But I'll be doing that very early on. But I would do that.
Okay, we all know by now that when it comes to presidential candidates, what they promise they'll do and what they can actually do when they get in office, 真的差很多呢. And on the subject of JFK, Trump promised to release those 19,000 files the first time he was in office. But there was a strange little tuss-up between him, the FBI, the CIA, and Mike Pompeo that kept him from getting it done.
Mike Pompeo begged him. He said Mike Pompeo called him and said this would be a catastrophe to release these. You need to not do it.
But hey, this is the last time he can actually be in office, yo. So maybe if he gets in there, he'll be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna release it all. So, more than UFOs and more than who shot JFK, what everyone wants to know the most is exactly who was on that list of visitors to that very strange island.
There's a moment where you had some hesitation about Epstein releasing some of the documents on Epstein. Why the hesitation?
I don't think I'm not involved. I never went to his island, fortunately. But a lot of people did.
Why do you think so many smart, powerful people allowed him to get so close?
He was a good salesman. He was, was a hale and hearty type of guy. He had some nice assets that he'd throw around, like islands. But a lot of big people went to that island. But fortunately, I was not one of them.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. Now, Kennedy's interesting because it's so many years ago. They do that for danger, too, because, endangers certain people, et cetera, et cetera. So Kennedy is very different from the Epstein thing. But yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
And as I said before, this will be Trump's final term in office, so he might just release everything. But in comparison to Command Man, I think it's safe to say that Trump knocked this interview out of the park. I mean, my man is used to doing interviews in hell mode. And by the time we put up this video, his interview might already be well over 4 million views. So let's check out what people are actually saying.
Say what you want about Trump, but these long-form interviews are how we should be hearing from every candidate. Let's see Kamala sit down for an unscripted hour with Lex now.
Trump gets credit for going on these interviews and putting himself out there. Credit where credit is due. Lex is a master of letting him open up and talk and letting the audience be the judge.
Telling Trump all Congress needs to get on mushrooms is crazy. Yeah, we didn't cover that topic in this episode, but if you actually watch the entire interview, you will see one segment where Lex Fridman has a conversation with the former president of the United States about psychedelics. So after this video, I think Trump's publicity will probably get a huge bump. I mean, the betting markets already have him up from 50 to 53%, and Kamala has dropped down 1%. And in just a few days, the world will finally get what it's been waiting for. 9月10日, the final showdown. Kamala versus Trump in the presidential debate. So, who do you guys think will win? Let me know down below. Remember to like, subscribe, and keep it civil. And I will see you on the flip side. Peace!